2 years into our marriage, Jack's one that got away divorced and came back to the States. That night, for the first time ever, my husband, who always came home, didn't. A while back, Jack's mother had offered me $5 million to leave him. I said no. Now, I'd had a change of heart. I was ready to renegotiate, up it to $10 million, and I'd sign the divorce papers. After all, the daughter-in-law she'd always wanted was single and free again. I was sure the old lady would be thrilled for me to step aside. At 6 a.m, I knocked on my mother-in-law's door. 10 minutes later, the whole house was in an uproar. 2 hours later, Jack received the signed divorce papers from me. That evening, while I was grinding on the dance floor with some hot younger guy at a club, Jack's people shut the place down. "Mia, what is this insanity? Why aren't you in the kitchen making breakfast?" My mother-in-law, her hair a messy bun of curls, stared at me from her doorway, her face a mask of fury. "And what in the world are you wearing? Have you no decency? Are you trying to shame the entire Sterling family?" She pointed at my short skirt, absolutely livid. Jack liked the innocent look, long, straight black hair, a white dress, pure and simple. His mother claimed that being a Sterling daughter-in-law meant behaving modestly, no showing off arms or legs, lest I tarnish the family name. After 2 years of marriage, I'd almost forgotten that I, Mia, had a pair of gorgeous, pale legs that deserved to be seen. It would be a crime to keep them hidden. When I didn't say anything, she thought I'd caved, as usual, and started jabbing her finger at my nose. "You will go upstairs right now, change that outfit, and then get to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. We'll be having a traditional brunch this morning." "Hey," I said, raising my hand and flicking her pointing finger away. "Mrs. Sterling, how about we talk business?" "What did you just call me?" She gave me a strange look. "Mia, have you lost your mind?" A few moments later, I was lounging on the sofa, and Mrs. Sterling was sitting across from me, still with her slightly messy hair and a tired, sagging face. This woman, who was usually the picture of poised elegance, had lost her composure for the third time this morning. "You're asking me for $10 million? And then you'll divorce Jack?" My sister-in-law, Jessica, chimed in with a sneer. "Mia, please. You're obsessed with my brother, practically crazy for him. You'd really leave him?" I ignored her and spoke directly to Mrs. Sterling. "That's right. 2 years ago, you offered me $5 million to leave Jack. I refused. I've thought it over now, but Jack's net worth has doubled since we got married, so it's only fair that my price doubles too, right? I think you've truly gone mad. Where is Jack? Get Jack down here for me." I crossed my arms, leaned back against the sofa, and smiled. "Don't bother. He didn't come home last night. If I'm not mistaken, Claire Lynn got back yesterday. They were probably together. All night." The expression on Mrs. Sterling's face was priceless. Jessica, however, gasped with delight. "Oh, Claire's back? No wonder my brother was in such a good mood yesterday." Mrs. Sterling shot her a glare, and Jessica quickly covered her mouth. After all, an affair wouldn't look good for the family's reputation. "You always did adore her. Now's your chance to officially be her mother-in-law. $10 million isn't too much to ask for that, is it?" I tapped the table and pushed the divorce papers I drafted towards her. "If you agree, I won't touch a single cent of our marital assets." Mrs. Sterling snatched the papers. Sure enough, it was all there in black and white, and Mia would walk away with nothing. She looked at me suspiciously. "Mia, what game are you playing? Why would I believe you'd let go so easily?" I shook my head and sighed. "How should I put this? It's like your toothbrush. If someone used it to scrub the toilet, would you still want it back?" My little analogy successfully grossed her out. She looked at me with disgust. "You can tell you come from a low-class background. Your language is so crude and vulgar. No wonder Jack never liked you, even after 2 years of marriage. How could you ever compare to Claire? Well, now I'm giving you an opportunity, aren't I? Think it over. Mom, what is there to think about? This is great news. Just say yes, Jessica urged. She and Claire were incredibly close, which was why she'd never liked me. But it didn't matter. I used to put up with it because she was my sister-in-law. From now on, she's just a stranger, and I couldn't care less. 10 minutes later, I had the money. Then, I went upstairs and grabbed the suitcase I'd already packed. When I came down, almost the entire Sterling family was in the living room, including my usually stern and serious father-in-law. He'd actually been decent to me, never giving me a hard time and even helping out my family. So, as I left, he was the only one I said goodbye to. Dad, this will be the last time I call you that. Please take care of yourself. Your leg acts up in the winter, so remember to stay warm and have the staff make you plenty of soup. I saw my father-in-law, his hair graying at the temples, let out a soft sigh. He beckoned me over. In front of everyone, he handed me a credit card. This is another 10 million. It's not much, but please take it. I thought to myself, this is great. I've lost love and a husband, but I have 20 million. I could spend half the day just counting the zeros. It would take my own dad 20 years to earn that much. I didn't refuse. I accepted it graciously. Thank you, Dad. Shameless, Jessica muttered under her breath. My mood had improved slightly, so I didn't feel like arguing with her. I put the card away, said my goodbyes to my father-in-law, and walked out, suitcase in tow. 2 hours later, the divorce papers, signed by me, were delivered to Jack's office by his secretary. Mr. Sterling, this is from your wife. She said to let her know once you've signed. Jack was too busy to even look up. Just put it aside. I don't have time right now. Sir, I really think you should look at this now, the secretary added quietly. Jack was annoyed, but the moment he saw the bold, black characters for divorce papers on the page, the hand holding his pen froze. He picked up the few thin sheets of paper, flipped through them, his gaze finally landing on Mia's signature. A moment later, however, Jack tossed the papers back to his secretary. Call her. Tell her I'll be home at 8 tonight. But, sir, aren't you supposed to be at Ms. Lynn's welcome home dinner tonight? Jack's eyes narrowed. Just make the call. The secretary didn't dare hesitate and quickly complied. Unfortunately for him, I had not only blocked Jack, but I had also blocked everyone close to him. If his German shepherd had a social media account, would have blocked that too. Mr. Sterling, I think your wife has blocked me, the secretary's voice trembled slightly. Jack's face darkened further. He picked up his phone and tapped Mia's name. Poor guy. He didn't even know he was the first one to get blocked. Jack put his phone down, pulled out a cigarette, and lit it. You can go now. After dismissing the secretary and finishing his cigarette, Jack tried to clear his head and get back to work. But then, his sister Jessica called. Bro. Amazing news. You can finally ditch that simp Mia and live happily ever after with Claire. Bro, you never have to go home to a woman you hate again. Aren't you happy? Aren't you thrilled? Jessica, what are you talking about? What is Mia pulling now? Jack stood up, yanking at his tie in frustration. He was gone for one night, and this is what she does? Did she ever stop to think what would happen if he actually signed those papers? Bro, Mia asked Mom for $10 million and agreed to divorce you. She's already gone. But at least she had the decency to only take her personal things and didn't touch anything from the house. Bro, I have to tell Claire the good news. Jessica chattered unhappily, but the lines suddenly went dead. Jack grabbed his suit jacket and headed for the door. Where is Mia right now? He asked his secretary. Sorry, Mr. Sterling, none of us know. Sorry, Mr. Sterling, she's blocked all of our numbers. A surge of anger rose in Jack, but he was disciplined enough to quickly regain his composure. Didn't she say to call her after I signed? The secretary glanced nervously at Jack's face. She said, Once you've signed, you can just meet her at the courthouse at 9 a.m. on Monday. She promised she won't be late. Jack stood there, his expression growing darker by the second. After a moment, he raised his hand, took off his glasses, and handed them to his assistant. Find out where my wife is. Let me know as soon as you have anything. Yes, Mr. Sterling. Prepare for the meeting. With that, Jack turned and went back into his office. Today's project was critical. It would determine the company's trajectory for the next 5 years. He had been working around the clock for days and had just pulled an all-nighter to finalize everything. Mia could throw her tantrums, but he couldn't play along. For Jack, work always came first. I didn't care what earthquake was shaking the Sterling household, and I didn't want to think about what Jack was thinking. At that moment, I was in the apartment my dad bought me before the wedding, hugging my teddy bear and sobbing my heart out. Mia, have you cried enough yet? My best friend, Anna, couldn't take it anymore and handed me a tissue. I took it, wiped my tears, and went back to crying into my bear. I'm divorced. I'm only 25, but now I'm a divorcee. My value on the market has plummeted. I'll definitely want to get married again someday, but if I can't find someone richer than Jack, every socialite in this city will laugh me to death. Let's go out for drinks tonight and blow off some steam. My sister just opened a new bar, and I hear it's packed with all the hottest guys in the city. I looked up at Anna, my eyes red and swollen. Are they really hot? Hotter than Jack? Girl, even if they're not as hot, at least they're younger, have more energy, and know how to make you happy. Haven't you heard the saying? A college guy's is harder than a diamond. Anna, exasperated with me, pulled me up from the floor. Right now, are you going to change into a sexy dress and come find a young stud with me, or not? I hesitated for a second, then agreed. I hadn't worn a sexy dress in 2 years and 1 month. I'd almost forgotten that before I married Jack, I lived in hot pants and crop tops. The day I had my blind date with Jack, my dad's men had to practically drag me there. I was only 22 at the time, and Jack was almost 30, so I was really not into it. Sure enough, when we met, he was in a full suit and tie in the middle of summer, looking like he just stepped out of a boardroom. And me? I had pink streaks in my hair and was wearing a tube top and hot pants. When my dad saw me walk in with that hair, he almost had a heart attack. He tried to say a few nice things about me to Jack but was stammering incoherently. Jack, however, didn't seem to react. He stood up and politely pulled out my chair for me. I didn't want to get married anyway, so I just did my own thing, eating and drinking without a trace of ladylike grace. My dad was signaling me so hard his eyeballs were about to pop out, but I pretended not to see. After dinner, Jack, out of politeness, drove me home. He was a serious, unsmiling type, while I was young and fun-loving, so naturally, I thought it was a bust. But to my surprise, Jack asked me out a few more times after that. My dad was thrilled, saying Jack had a great impression of me and the marriage might actually happen. I yelled at my dad, he might be into me, but I'm not into him. What a cradle robber. My dad shut me up with one sentence: you may not be into him, but your arch nemesis, Tony, is dying to marry him and is having people set it up. The moment I heard that, I was fired up. Tony wants him? She's desperate to marry him? Then I have to have him. I started dating Jack. My original plan was just to lord it over Tony, but a few months later, I fell head over heels. I fell in love with Jack. A young girl's love is a blazing, overwhelming fire. It burned me until I was unrecognizable. He calmly took control of every aspect of my life, even turning me into the daughter my dad had always dreamed of. Long black hair, always in long dresses. Because he liked it, I was happy to change. Until one day, I found a photo of him and Clare Lynn from their school days on his computer. In the picture, Claire lived up to her name, a white dress, black hair, looking fatally pure. Even though there was another guy in the photo, with Claire standing between them, I couldn't even see the third person. My eyes were glued to the way Claire was smiling shyly at Jack. So, It wasn't that Jack liked me with long black hair and a white dress. So, Jack had a cliché one that got away in his heart too. But back then, I was so madly in love with him that I didn't even have the courage to confront him. I was afraid that if I asked, my happiness would pop like a soap bubble, pricked by my own hand. Besides, Claire had gotten married before Jack and I did. So, a part of me had always felt a sense of relief. But now Claire was divorced, and she was back. The thought of how Jack must have comforted her last night, staying with her all night, made me want to cry again. Anna quickly dragged me into the closet, pulled out a super tight little black dress, and shoved it at me. Then she mysteriously produced a new bra. Change into this. Look at you, you've gotten so skinny you're flat as a board. Put this on, and I guarantee you'll be turning heads. Even a gay guy would go straight for you. I held the clothes, sniffling as I looked at Anna. Is this really okay? I mean, I'm a divorcee now, not a young girl. Shouldn't I be a little more dignified? Anna looked like she wanted to roll her eyes into the back of her head. Mia. You are 25 years old. A beautiful 25-year-old woman. You can worry about being dignified when you're 52, okay? Alright then. Two beautiful 25-year-old women, one in black, one in white, both in tight, strapless dresses and stilettos, swayed their way into the club. At first, I felt a little shy. I'd been so prim and proper for 2 years that suddenly being this hot and sexy felt a bit awkward. But after one drink, my perspective shifted. I'd already signed the divorce papers. Jack had probably signed his with glee. Next Monday, one trip to the courthouse, and we'd be completely done. His sudden decision to get married back then was probably because he was stung by Claire getting married, right? I pouted, fighting back the urge to cry as I let loose. I even pulled my collar down a little lower and, feeling a bit floaty, dragged Anna straight onto the dance floor. The dance floor was crowded with men and women grinding against each other, and I quickly found my rhythm, feeling wild and free. A cute guy came over to hit on me. I glanced at him, thought he was decent looking, his eyes reminded me a little of Jack's, and reached out to grab his collar. His hands immediately went to my waist, and just like everyone else on the dance floor, he started dancing intimately with me. I still wasn't used to being this close to a strange man and instinctively moved to push his hands away. But the music suddenly stopped. Everyone looked around in surprise. The club was suddenly flooded with men in black suits who looked like bodyguards. The waiters and club security were herded into a corner. The bodyguards moved in, surrounding the dance floor. What the hell is going on? Yeah, what's happening? Who are they after? The commotion sobered me up instantly. They were probably here for me. Because I could already see him striding through the crowd, tall and imposing, Jack. He wasn't wearing his glasses, and his face was cold and severe. My heart clenched. Instinctively, I tried to hide behind someone. But Jack's sharp gaze had already cut through the crowd and landed on my face. I was too flustered to even look him in the eye and turned to run. Mia. Jack called my name. I knew him well enough to know that the calmer his voice, the angrier he was. When we were first married, I got caught sneaking a drink, and he had called my name just like that. That night was seared into my memory. I was laid up in bed for 2 whole days before I could get up. But I learned my lesson. For a long time after, I was sweet and obedient, which seemed to please Jack immensely. He showered me with expensive jewelry to appease me. My feet were rooted to the spot. It was only then that I remembered the cute guy's hands were still on my waist. In an instant, the hair on my arms stood on end, and I started to tremble. Jack's brow was furrowed, his expression utterly grim. He walked forward as his bodyguards forcefully parted the people in front of me. Then, his gaze slid, inch by inch, from my face, down my white neck and delicate collarbones, to my impossibly small waist. Or more precisely, to the other guy's hands. I sensed trouble and was about to speak. But Jack suddenly reached out, grabbed the young guy's wrist, and shoved him aside. A small gasp rippled through the crowd. I shrank back, my eyes darting around like a terrified quail. I was scared of Jack's anger. To be precise, because I loved him so much, I was hyper-aware of his moods. When he was unhappy, it felt like my world was collapsing. But now, we were getting divorced. With that thought, a surge of courage came from nowhere. I suddenly lifted my head and met his gaze. A single spotlight shone down on the dance floor, leaving my bare shoulders and back looking fragile and pale, completely exposed. Jack's assistants and bodyguards were smart enough not to dare look at me. But so many men had seen me tonight. I had never seen such a terrifying look on Jack's face. It gave me the strange illusion that he was furious, as if someone had stolen his most prized possession. But I, Mia, was never his treasure. My eyes started to turn red. I fought back the stabbing pain in my heart and defiantly lifted my chin. "Mr. Sterling, can I help you?" Jack's eyes were dark and intense as he stared at me for a few seconds. Then he suddenly shrugged off his suit jacket, stepped forward, and wrapped it around me. He even pulled the lapels tight, bundling me up completely. I twisted, trying to throw off his jacket, but he held me firmly in his arms with just one hand. "Mia, whatever this is, let's go home and talk about it." I could feel Jack trying to be patient with me. But that just made me feel more wronged. He was only here because he felt I was embarrassing him. After all, we hadn't finalized the divorce yet. I was still technically his wife. "Mr. Sterling, I'm not going back with you." I refused to go, struggling to break free from his embrace. Jack's brow furrowed. He held my shoulders through the jacket, preventing me from taking it off. "Mia, how long are you going to keep this up?" "I'm not keeping anything up. I've made my decision, and the divorce papers are signed." "Mr. Sterling, can you not read?" The silence around us was deafening. Even Jack's personal assistants were looking at me with utter shock. I shook off his hands again and yanked his jacket off, throwing it back at him. "So, we're done. Stop trying to control me." That move undoubtedly infuriated him. His face grew colder, and honestly, I was terrified. I was afraid that by humiliating him publicly, he might lose control and lash out. Although, in all the time we'd been married, he'd never even said a harsh word to me. I bit my lip, forcing myself not to back down. But my traitorous tears started to well up. Damn Anna and her heavy makeup. I didn't dare let the tears fall, terrified my face would melt and I'd look like a ghost. But I couldn't look at Jack anymore. Seeing him just made me feel wronged. Seeing him made my resolve weaken, made me not want to let go. He was just too handsome, especially when he was angry. He ticked every single box of my fantasies about men. Thinking back, I realized there was a reason I used to deliberately provoke him. Every time he'd get that cold look on his face, unbutton his shirt, pin me against the wall with one hand, grab my chin, and kiss me fiercely, saying, "Mia, you're just asking for it." My heart would pound like a schoolgirl with a crush. I'd been married to Jack for 2 years, and I still felt like I was in the honeymoon phase. My obsession with him only deepened with each passing day. He was a reserved man who rarely spoke or smiled. My dad called it being stable, a sign of a mature man. But I knew the truth. He just didn't like me. Oh, that's not entirely true. Whenever he was home and I wasn't on my period, he almost always expected me to fulfill my wifely duties. But what did that even mean? He was a man in his early 30s, in his prime. I, his wife, was just a convenient and legal outlet for him. I was sinking deeper, yet a sober part of me was screaming, fully aware that I was walking toward a cliff's edge. The day he decided he didn't want me anymore, I would fall and be shattered to pieces. I'm afraid of pain, and I'm afraid of dying. Besides, I have $20 million now. I can't afford to die. So I have to get away from him, to stop letting him mesmerize me. I held back my tears, took a long, deep breath, and looked away. "Mr. Sterling, if there's nothing else, please leave. A place like this is beneath you." He was right. Since marrying him, my clothes, my makeup, the tone of my voice, the breadth of my smile, the places I was allowed to go, everything was under strict control. The slightest misstep and his mother would scold me for being low class, unworthy of him, and a disgrace to the Sterling family. A bar. I hadn't set foot in one for 2.5 years. But I wasn't his wife anymore, so he had no right to control me. Maybe it was my on the verge of tears expression that made Jack feel a little helpless. Mia, if you're going to be angry with me, you at least have to tell me why. Why? He had the audacity to ask me why. He kept a photo of him and his one that got away on his computer. He used the Sterling Group's top lawyers to handle Claire's international divorce case. Last year, on my birthday, he flew abroad, claiming he had a crucial meeting he couldn't miss. But then Jessica saw a photo Clare posted on her social media. While I was celebrating my birthday all alone, he was having afternoon tea with Clare. He molded me into a second Clare to ease his pining. He had another woman in his heart, yet he still wanted to sleep with me, to toss me around every night. He refused to let me get pregnant after 2 years of marriage, saying I was still young, just a kid myself, and there was no rush to be a mother. The truth was, he just wanted to avoid any loose ends so he could dump me cleanly and marry the woman he truly loved. The very first day Clare came back, he didn't come home. And now that I was giving him exactly what he wanted, he had the nerve to ask me why. My heart was overflowing with grievances, but they were all stuck in my throat. All I could do was cry. I couldn't get a single word out. Perhaps because I was crying so pitifully, Jack's tone seemed to soften slightly. Mia, just come home with me, he said, stepping forward again to place his jacket over my shoulders. I was shaking from crying so hard. For the last time, I pushed him away forcefully. Jack, don't touch me. When you touch me, I feel sick. Sick. He didn't say anything else, just watched me with a heavy expression, the emotion in his eyes dark and terrifying, as if I were the one who had betrayed our marriage. I was a mess of tears and didn't want to see him for another second. I turned, grabbed Anna, and stumbled away. Jack didn't follow. As I was leaving, I heard his phone ring. His hello was unusually gentle, and it pierced my ears. It must be Clare. So, they could have their date tonight without any burdens. I stayed at Anna's place that night. After a shower, I threw myself onto the bed, turned off my phone, had a good, long cry, and then slept like the dead. Anna understood. She knew I didn't want to be disturbed and, aside from bringing me food on schedule, she didn't say a word. On Monday morning, I woke up early, showered, did my skincare routine, and changed into a red slip dress. Anna offered to drive me to the courthouse, but I told her not to. This was the last thing Jack and I would ever do together, even if it was just to get our divorce certificates. I wanted to handle it myself. I looked so carefree, my makeup was vibrant and youthful, but no one knew how much pain I was in. Before I left, I turned on my phone. There were tons of messages, texts, and missed calls. But Jack had only sent one text, from the other night. Mia, 9 a.m. on Monday. I'll be waiting for you at the courthouse. The moment I saw that message, I almost lost control. The hand holding my phone trembled violently. But I held back the tears. I didn't want to have to redo my makeup. I was determined to look beautiful for my divorce. My rival, Tony, was probably waiting to see me fall apart. And that little bitch Jessica was surely rubbing her hands together in glee. Even as a divorcee, I was going to be the most beautiful one in the city. Actually, my relationship with Jessica wasn't always so terrible in the beginning. After I married Jack, we would occasionally go shopping together, and I'd buy her clothes and jewelry. Once, she fell in love with a pair of jade earrings Jack had given me. She begged and pleaded until I finally, reluctantly, gave them to her. But when Jack saw her wearing them, he said, "Give those earrings back to your sister-in-law. Your skin isn't as fair as hers. Jade doesn't suit you." And that was it. One sentence, and Jessica and I were officially enemies. It's easy for women to become mortal enemies. All it takes is one comment about how you're not as good as someone else, and even the best of friends can end up seething with hatred behind each other's backs. For the past 2 years, Jessica has been subtly and not so subtly sabotaging me, and I've put up with it all. But from now on, if she dares to mess with me, I'll make her regret it. I took a deep breath, managed to get my emotions in check, and went downstairs to my car. I got to the courthouse at exactly 8:40 a.m. Jack was rigid and old-fashioned. If he said 9 o'clock, he would be there at 9 o'clock, not a minute later. Sure enough, at precisely 9 a.m., his Bentley pulled up to the courthouse entrance. He got out and walked straight toward my car. I put on my sunglasses and got out too. In the sunlight, with my black hair, red lips, pale skin, and red dress, I looked like a flame. I walked straight into the courthouse without giving him a second glance. As Jack followed me into the lobby, I realized we were the only couple there to get a divorce. Did Jack, in his obsessive way, clear the place out? I remembered Anna muttering to me this morning that her sister's bar had been temporarily shut down. The official reason, suspected of disrupting domestic harmony. It was a completely bogus charge, but with Jack pulling the strings, there was nothing anyone could do but close up for renovations. Anna had whispered to me that Jack's moves seemed like something a man madly in love would do, that maybe he wasn't completely without feelings for me. I scoffed internally. He and his family were just obsessed with protecting the Sterling family's reputation. Did you sign it? I asked, lifting my chin. Jack looked a little under the weather. Why the sudden divorce? He asked, ignoring my question. It's not sudden. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I could finally face him calmly. Mia, are you in love with someone else? Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. He was the one messing around with his old flame, not coming home at night, and now somehow I was the one cheating. Jack, don't you dare accuse me of that. He looked at me calmly. If not, then why get divorced? Do you really want me to air your dirty laundry in public? I stomped my foot in frustration. What dirty laundry? He raised an eyebrow, his voice still infuriatingly calm. Shameless, absolutely shameless. I wanted to bite his head off. Because of Clare Lynn? It was like he'd hit a nerve. I fell silent instantly. I bit my lip, my eyes turning red as I looked at him. Yes. Because of Clare. What does she have to do with this? She's back in the country getting a divorce, and you decide to follow her bad example? Mia, I can tolerate my wife being willful, acting out occasionally, even causing trouble outside. I can handle all of that, but there's a limit. He seemed tired, pressing a hand to his forehead. You've had your fun. You can still come home with me now. I felt like I was watching my heart get thrown carelessly on the ground and then stomped on. So, this was still just me acting out. He still thought I was throwing a tantrum. What would it take to make him understand? Jack, Mia doesn't want to love you anymore. She doesn't want to be your wife. She doesn't want to be unloved by you, to not matter to you. But even now, seeing the slight exhaustion on his face, I still felt a pang of pain. I looked at him, wearing the shirt I picked out, the tie I bought, even his underwear and socks were ones I had hand-washed. I'd never even washed socks for my own father. I loved him so much. All he had to do was call me his wife one more time. Just hug me once more, and I'd pathetically give in. But he couldn't even be bothered to pretend anymore. Clare was back. A man only has enough gentleness and patience for the woman he loves. Mia, you're so pathetic. Your husband doesn't love you. The thought of him and Clare, their affair, was suffocating me. I took a deep breath, desperately clinging to my last shred of self-respect, keeping my chin up so I wouldn't lose my composure. Jack, how many times do I have to say it for you to understand? I want a divorce. It's not up for discussion. Mia, you'd better think this through. Divorce is not a game. I know. Jack, from the moment I brought up divorce, I was perfectly clear. I'm not changing my mind. He looked at me deeply for a moment, then let out a soft, almost self-deprecating laugh. I didn't know why he laughed like that, and I didn't have the energy to care anymore. Because he said, "Fine." The divorce process was quick. Since I wasn't asking for any of his assets, it was simple. As the clerk was stamping the green divorce booklets, Jack gave me one last look. "Mia." My mind was a complete fog. "Could you please hurry? I'm in a rush." He didn't speak again. We got our divorce certificates quickly. I took my copy, put on my sunglasses, and walked briskly out of the building. I felt like Jack was following me. Or maybe I was just imagining it. There was only one exit, so of course he had to go the same way. I got in my car and drove off without a single glance in his direction. It wasn't until I was stopped at a red light that it finally hit me. I looked at the little green booklet and I completely broke down, gripping the steering wheel and sobbing uncontrollably. I was holding up traffic, but I didn't care. It wasn't until a police officer came to check on me that I managed to pull myself together and drive away. I went back to the apartment my dad had bought for me before the wedding. I showered, changed into loungewear, and started staring blankly at my teddy bear. But less than 10 minutes later, my phone started ringing like crazy. I didn't want to look at it, didn't want to answer. But whoever was calling was relentless, not stopping for a second. My head was pounding. I finally reached for the phone, intending to turn it off. But I saw a name. Tony. My inner warrior instantly reawakened. I grabbed the phone like a cornered animal, my eyes glinting with a feral light. Tony wants to laugh at my misfortune? Ha! In her dreams. I answered the call, fully prepared for battle. But Tony shrieked something I never could have expected. "Mia, are you insane? You're divorcing Jack Sterling for Ethan?" I was stunned. "Ethan who? Why would I?" "Ethan and I broke up centuries ago. Sure, he was my first love, but we were just kids. What did we know about love? I'd almost forgotten he even existed." "Mia, did you hit your head? The second Ethan announces he's broken up with Jane and is coming back to start a business, you start pushing for a divorce from Jack." Tony was incredibly agitated on the phone. Why was she so upset about my divorce? Shouldn't this be good news for her? She was crazy about Jack. "Mia, how dare you? The man I'd do anything to marry, you just marry and dump like it's nothing. What gives you the right? You're a tiny bit prettier than me, a little paler, but what else do you have that I don't? Why, when Jack was heartbroken and just wanted to marry someone, anyone, did he pick you and not me?" Tony started sobbing over the phone. But as I held the phone, I wanted to cry even more. So, everyone knew he suddenly got married because he was heartbroken. Everyone but me. I was the fool who happily married him, became his wife. The night before our wedding, I was so excited I couldn't stop tossing and turning in bed. Looking back now, the entire city must have been watching me like I was an idiot. I hung up the phone. At this point, I was past crying. I stared blankly at the teddy bear in front of me. I had begged Jack to get this for me for Children's Day during our first year of dating. He thought it was childish and absurd, but he still bought it for me himself. I cherished it, hugging it to sleep every night. But now, I don't even want your dad anymore. You, his bear son, can get lost too. I grabbed it by the ear, scrambled up, and went to open the door to throw it out. But as soon as I opened the door, I was met with Ethan's handsome, soulful face. He gave me a brilliant smile, opened his arms, and hugged me. "Mia, I'm back." And in the instant he hugged me, the elevator behind him slowly opened. Jack's figure appeared, bit by bit, in my line of sight. The bear son I was holding slipped from my hand and fell to the floor with a thud. "Mia, what's wrong?" Ethan asked softly, his voice gentle. I was completely frozen. I couldn't speak, couldn't raise my hands to push him away. All I could do was stare, stunned, at the emotionless Jack. Ethan finally noticed something was wrong. He let go of me and turned to look behind him. His warm, smiling gaze met Jack's, and the smile slowly faded. Jack's eyes were like a thin layer of frost, capable of freezing a person on the spot. I trembled, stumbling backward, wanting to slam the door and hide. As if to make things worse, Ethan grabbed my wrist. I instinctively looked at Jack. His face was terrifyingly dark, his lips pressed into a thin line. I could almost feel him grinding his back teeth. Mia. Jack just said my name, nothing more. But it was like an electric shock. I quickly yanked my hand away from Ethan. It's not, you're misunderstanding. I didn't know he was outside my door. I stammered, trying to explain, but the more flustered I got, the more jumbled my words became. Jack, I didn't know how to explain how these two men had so coincidentally shown up one after the other. One was my brand new ex-husband, the other my clueless teenage first love. And to top it all off, even Tony thought I was divorcing Jack for Ethan. And of course, Jack happened to see me in an embrace with Ethan right after our divorce. I had no idea what to do. The events of the past few days had left me exhausted, on the verge of collapse. So, I threw my hands up. I don't care anymore. Think whatever you want. I yelled at them both. I screamed and turned to go back into my apartment, but the world suddenly started to spin. In that moment, the plots of hundreds of alpha male romance novels I'd read in school flooded my brain. I went with it, slumping limply toward the ground, cleverly aiming for my bare son. Just in case neither of them did a slow motion, 360-degree spin to catch me, I didn't want to get hurt. Mia. I closed my eyes, hearing Ethan's anxious, terrified voice. But the arms that caught me carried a familiar scent of tobacco and a hint of lime. Those arms were strong, powerful, and caught me steadily just as I was about to fall. It was Jack's embrace. I suddenly felt completely at ease. I kept my eyes tightly shut all the way until we were in the car. I heard Jack sharply order the driver to the hospital before I slowly opened my eyes and tugged on his sleeve. Jack looked down at me. I struggled out of his arms. I was faking it. I'm fine. We don't need to go to the hospital. Mia. Jack's face was terrifyingly dark. I let my gaze drift to the side. It was just a misunderstanding. I didn't know he was outside my door. He hugged me as soon as I opened it, and I didn't have a chance to push him away before you showed up. Are you explaining yourself to me? What else would I be doing? I'm not going to be wrongly accused of cheating. I looked at him frankly. And besides, we haven't spoken since we broke up. The divorce has nothing to do with him. Already defending him? What are you talking about? I'm just telling the truth. Mia, you'd better not be lying to me. Jack's voice was cold. Since you're fine, get out of the car. A sharp pain pierced my heart. I couldn't help but bite my lip and look at him. His profile was so handsome, the line of his jaw sharp and smooth, incredibly masculine. I loved kissing his Adam's apple, especially when we were intimate. Whenever I kissed it, or lightly bit his jaw, he would become exceptionally passionate, fierce. But now, the thought that Clare might have touched and kissed him that night made my stomach turn. I reached for the door handle and got out of the car. I didn't say a word, didn't look back. So I didn't see Jack watching my retreating back through the car window. His gaze lingered long after I had disappeared from sight. My mood was low for a whole week. During that time, Ethan tried every way possible to contact me, to find me, but I refused all his attempts. I didn't leave the apartment until Anna invited me to go shopping and have afternoon tea. We went on a massive shopping spree, buying tons of clothes and bags. It's true what they say, the only things that can make a woman happy are shopping and more shopping. I ordered a large taro milk tea and had just poked the straw in. Suddenly, a delicate figure appeared in front of me. I looked up. Clare Lynn was looking at me, a bit apologetically. Mia. She called my name softly. I sized her up, long, straight black hair, a beige long dress, very light makeup. Not stunningly beautiful, but very gentle and delicate, the kind of look men fall for. But we weren't close. Why was she using my first name? Can I help you? Can I talk to you for a minute? No. Mia, I know you must hate me. Claire's voice trembled slightly. I'd said a total of 4 words. Why did she look like she was about to cry? No. If she cried, Jack would probably come over and throttle me out of sympathy. I quickly put down my milk tea and adopted a warmer tone. Ms. Lynn, what did you want to talk about? It's less crowded over there, why don't we talk there? Claire, her eyes red, nodded at me like a little white rabbit and said meekly, okay, whatever you say. Anna and I exchanged a look. We both saw the same thought in each other's eyes. We were out of our league. No wonder Jack cared for her so much. If I were a man, I'd fall for this delicate little white lotus too. A sour feeling churned in my stomach. My previous attempts at being meek and obedient must have looked ridiculous to Jack. Look at how natural and masterful Claire was. No wonder after 2 years of marriage, after letting him take advantage of me so many times, Jack still didn't like me. I followed behind Claire. In her high heels, she swayed gracefully, like a fragile white lotus. I was in hot pants and a t-shirt with a messy bun, looking like an underdeveloped college student. Sigh. My shoulders slumped. I felt defeated. But in the face of a man's overwhelming preference, even if I dressed as elegantly and properly as I used to, Jack still wouldn't give me a second glance. So, I might as well just be myself. At least I could be comfortable and happy. Mia, I know it's all my fault that you and Jack got divorced. As soon as we stopped, Claire got straight to the point. Ha. This was the exact same plot as the hundreds of CEO novels I'd read. I smiled at her. Yeah, it's all your fault. Claire was taken aback for a second, but then her eyes reddened, and she gently took my hand. Mia, please don't misunderstand. Jack and I are just old classmates. He helped me out because we're old friends. And even if there was something between us, that was a long time ago. You really don't need to dwell on it. When you suddenly started pushing for a divorce, I felt so guilty. If I'm the reason you two are fighting, I'll never forgive myself. Since you understand all that, why are you still so close to a married man? If you feel so guilty, why did you let him stay the night at your place? Is sleeping with another woman's husband particularly thrilling? Claire froze again. Mia, you've misunderstood. Misunderstood what? That you were just chatting under the covers? I was just in a bad mood because of my divorce, and I wasn't feeling well after coming back to the country. Jack was just worried about me, so he stayed to watch over me. Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. Mia, please don't misunderstand. Nothing happened between Jack and me. We were completely innocent. Besides, if things were really like you think, would have just married him in the first place, wouldn't I? Mia, Jack's career is in a critical phase right now. He's incredibly busy. You shouldn't be causing trouble for him at a time like this. You're 25 now, not a child. Jack used to say you were young and immature, but you've been married to him for 2 years. You should know better by now. Claire advised me earnestly. If I didn't know she was my ex-husband's other woman, I would have been touched. Even my own dad had never been this patient with me. Are you done? Anything else to add? If not, I'm leaving. Mia, I'm just trying to help. I don't want to see you two fall apart. Jack is one of the most important people in my life, and I want him to be happy. Jack and I already have our divorce certificates. If you want to make him happy, you can go be his replacement wife now, Ms. Lynn. If you marry him, he'll be happy, his mom will be happy, and his sister who loves you will be happy. You'll be one big happy family. Go on, Ms. Lynn. Go join their family and achieve domestic harmony. Congratulations. I'm already applauding for the future Mrs. Sterling. I was still smiling at her. But the hand behind my back was clenched so tightly that my palm ached. But I would rather die of pain than cry in front of her. That bastard Jack, talking me down in front of his precious one that got away. Yes, I was childish, immature, and foolish. But who was the one who married me? Who promised to be good to me, to take care of me, to make me happy and carefree forever? Before we got married, you knelt with me at my mother's grave and swore you would cherish me like a child. And later, you were the one who complained that I was immature, like a child. But for the 2 years I was married to you, I made breakfast every day, helped with housework, even washed clothes and cleaned up Jessica's room. I went shopping with your mom and carried her bags, poured her tea when she played cards, accompanied your dad to his checkups, and learned how to make soup. When you were sick from drinking, I made you hangover soup. When you were away on business for a month, I missed you so much I cried at night, but I didn't dare disturb your work, not even with a video call. In 2 years of marriage, you were barely ever home. My world went from revolving around you to revolving around your family. No matter how badly they treated me, I endured it all because I loved you. That's why I foolishly loved everything and everyone connected to you. My occasional tantrums, my moments of clinginess with you, were just my way of seeking a little affection from my own husband. But you were always so cold, except when you wanted something. Then you would kiss me and whisper sweet nothings. The moment we were out of bed, you put on your emotionless, all-business face. How much more mature, how much more sensible did I need to be? These past 2 years have been anything but happy. Now that I've finally decided to get a divorce, your mistress has the nerve to come and taunt me. Why should I have to put up with this? If Claire kept provoking me, I wouldn't mind having a complete meltdown just to show them that even a doormat has a breaking point. But Claire didn't give me the chance. Maybe my words had gotten to her. Her face turned deathly pale, and she started crying pitifully. My head throbbed. I turned to Anna for help. Claire reached out a hand toward me. I instinctively thought she was going to hit me and pushed her arm away. And then, she stumbled and just collapsed limply to the ground. Anna saw what happened and rushed over. As we were about to help her up, Claire clutched her stomach and let out a soft moan. Mia, please, call an ambulance. I'm pregnant. I've been on medication to prevent a miscarriage. Anna immediately looked at me. And I, after a moment of stunned silence, instantly put 2 and 2 together. Jack and she hadn't just rekindled things that one night. They had met up abroad last year on my birthday. And Jack had traveled abroad for business this year, too. He had gone to such great lengths to help Claire with her divorce, providing money, resources, and support. So, this baby in her belly, could it be his? All the strength I had mustered, all my pretense of indifference and nonchalance, completely crumbled in that instant. I stood there, my vision blurring. Anna was terrified, shaking me constantly. Mia, don't scare me. If you want to cry, just cry. Don't be like this, Mia, I'm scared. My tears started to flow like a broken dam, but an invisible hand was squeezing my throat. I couldn't cry out, I couldn't make a sound. It was squeezing so tightly I couldn't breathe. Something was twisting my heart, a sharp, excruciating pain. I didn't dare to imagine the scenes, didn't dare to picture him in Claire's bed. I didn't dare to think about how he kissed her, how he whispered that he loved her while they were tangled together. The ambulance took Claire to the hospital, and the nurses wheeled her off for an examination. Maybe it was the cold drink, but my lower abdomen was starting to feel heavy and uncomfortable, so I went to the restroom. There was a dark red stain on my underwear. I figured it was my period and put on a sanitary pad I had with me. When I came back from the restroom, I saw Jack rushing out of the elevator, striding toward the examination room. His back alone radiated worry and panic. I suddenly felt unsteady and leaned against the wall. I waited until Jack's figure disappeared before I turned and left in a daze. On the way home, I got a call from my dad. Mia, you and Jack, why did you get a divorce when things were going so well? My dad's voice sounded tired. For the past few years, our business has only survived because of Jack. Now that you've divorced him, several of my major contracts have fallen through. I'm suddenly 20 million in the hole. Mia, what are we going to do? I stood on the side of the road, the scorching sun beating down on me. If you're not meant to have it, it doesn't matter what you do. I got 20 million from the divorce, and now it's all gone, just to cover my dad's losses. And even that wasn't enough. Without Jack as a son-in-law, my dad's business was in free fall. I couldn't bear to watch him struggle to make ends meet at his age, so I started sending out my resume everywhere. I studied design in college, but with no real work experience, most HR departments rejected me outright. Luckily, fate threw me a bone. A mid-sized advertising agency hired me, but the pay during the internship period was low, and the work was incredibly demanding. My dad had always spoiled me. My mom died when I was young, and he refused to remarry, afraid I'd be mistreated by a stepmother. He raised me all by himself and never let me suffer, which made me a bit spoiled. The work was exhausting, but I gritted my teeth and endured it. But the pain in my heart was unbearable. To make matters worse, Jessica found ways to send me a few photos using someone else's account. They were all screenshots from Claire's social media. In one photo, Claire was gently cradling her stomach, a serene smile on her face. The caption read, "All is well. So glad to have you. Grateful for this person, this love, that has always been by my side." I expressionlessly blocked the account. After that, for some reason, she quieted down. I started working overtime like a maniac, trying to avoid being alone with my thoughts. One day, during a late night at the office, I stood up to get some water and suddenly fainted. On the way to the hospital, I managed to come to my senses long enough to call Anna and ask her to come be with me. When the doctor finished the examination and told me I was 5 weeks pregnant, my world went completely blank. Anna was ecstatic and immediately wanted to call Jack. But I grabbed her hand tightly. He doesn't even care about me, the mother. Why would he care about my child? He doesn't love me, and he won't love the baby in my belly. If I told him, he'd just think I was copying Claire again. Yes, that's what he'd think. That I was even copying her pregnancy. Anna looked at my pale face and couldn't help but cry. I wanted to comfort her, but as soon as I opened my mouth, tears streamed down my face. I didn't want this baby. I didn't want him to be like me, never knowing complete love. But I couldn't bear to let him go. He was Jack's and my baby. If it was a girl, would Jack love her even a little? If it was a boy, would he grow up to be as tall and handsome as Jack? I clutched my stomach tightly, curling into a ball. I couldn't think about it anymore. Ethan came to see me at the hospital. Anna must have told him. He got straight to the point, telling me he was willing to accept the baby in my belly, as long as I agreed to get back together with him. But I refused without a second thought. "Mia, can you really not forgive me?" Ethan stood by the bed, his heart aching. "Ethan, I told you before. The things I hate most in this world are betrayal and being abandoned. The day you cheated on me with Jane, you should have known this day would come. Mia, these past few years, I've regretted it every single moment. I truly regret it." I shook my head. "You should go, Ethan. It's really impossible for us." Ethan slowly raised his hands to cover his face. He knew my personality. I don't tolerate betrayal. If I did, I wouldn't have been so insistent on divorcing Jack. Not long after Ethan left, the door to the room opened again. I didn't open my eyes, speaking wearily. "Ethan, how many times do I have to tell you? I'm not getting back together with you." But there was no reply. The door to the room clicked shut. I snapped my eyes open and looked toward the door. Jack was walking toward me. He was still in a black suit, shirt, tie, belt, all things I had picked out for him. He was wearing his glasses, looking a bit tired, like he had just come from the office. He seemed to have lost some weight, with faint dark circles under his eyes. I turned my face away. I knew it. He must have been pulling all-nighters again, not taking care of himself. "Anna said you weren't feeling well and were in the hospital." He came over and sat on the edge of my bed, naturally taking my hand. "I was getting in 4, and the hand with the needle was cold. He squeezed it, his brow furrowing. "Why are your hands so cold?" I closed my eyes, trying to pull my hand back, but he held it gently in his palm. "Mia." He said my name, and my nose instantly tingled. Even with my eyes closed, tears started to well up, threatening to spill. "The company has been incredibly busy lately, you know that." I didn't speak, but he continued, "But I can't seem to focus on work. Mia, I haven't come to see you these past few days because I've been trying to figure out why you suddenly wanted a divorce." I still didn't want to talk, but tears slowly escaped my closed eyelids. "At first, I thought it was because of Ethan, that's why you were so insistent on the divorce." I was angry, not thinking straight, and I just agreed. His voice held a hint of guilt. I couldn't help but open my eyes to look at him. "Jack." "I know, Mia. It's my fault. I didn't get the full story." He held my hand, his eyes filled with a tenderness that surprised me. I shook my head vigorously. He didn't understand, and he never would. He'd never understand why I was so determined to divorce him. I'm just that stubborn. I can't tolerate betrayal. I'd rather suffer alone than compromise on something like this. These past 2 years of marriage, I've been so focused on work that I've neglected you, neglected a lot of things. I kept shaking my head. It wasn't because of his work. I'm not a child. I understand how important a career is to a man. I've already sent Jessica abroad to study. She'll only get $500 a month in her account. She'll have to work for the rest. I was stunned. Jessica was his only sister. They were always so close, and he always spoiled her. $500 might be enough for a regular student, but for the extravagant Jessica, it wouldn't even buy a single dress. If you hadn't asked for a divorce, I probably would have remained in the dark. Jack's expression was grave, but when he looked at me, his eyes were filled with guilt and pity. Honestly, I never blamed him for these things. Jessica was always a great actress. Whenever Jack was home, she would pretend we were the best of friends. And I, not wanting to bother him with trivial family matters, never told him about her two-faced behavior. After all, her childish antics didn't really hurt me, so I could tolerate them. My insistence on divorce was like lancing a boil. Jessica, in her gloating, finally revealed her true colors to her brother. "When she learns some manners and how to respect you as her sister-in-law, then we'll talk." "You don't have to do that. She just doesn't like me as her sister-in-law. It's not a huge crime. She can like it or not, accept it or not. My wife is you, and only you." "Jack, but Claire, you've always liked her." "Who told you I like her?" He frowned and flicked my forehead lightly. "Where do you hear all this nonsense?" "But, you have a picture of you two on your computer. You helped her with her divorce, and on my birthday last year, you said you had a business trip, but you were having afternoon tea with her. I didn't even get a happy birthday from you." My voice choked up as I spoke. I'm stubborn and proud. My ridiculous pride wouldn't let me ask these questions out loud. "A picture?" "Yes, the photo in your favorites folder on your computer. She's smiling so sweetly at you." "You mean, this one?" He took out his phone, pulled up a photo, and showed it to me. It was the one from his computer. I nodded vigorously. "That's the one." Jack actually smiled. He rarely smiled. He was a man of tradition, serious, cold, and detached. In the 2 years I'd been married to him, I could count the number of times he'd smiled on one hand. I was a bit mesmerized. Jack took off his glasses, shook his head with a laugh, and then reached out to stroke my hair. "Silly girl." That silly girl, spoken with such incredible fondness, made my head spin. Look at the picture again, carefully. In the background, top left corner. Who is that? I quickly wiped my tears and looked closer. In the top left corner, there seemed to be a couple. The girl had dark teal hair, was wearing a tank top and a pleated skirt, a very edgy look. The guy next to her was tall, handsome, and stylish. They looked great together. But what I didn't expect was, "Is that me?" I was shocked. How was I in this picture? Wait, the person next to me, I think that's Ethan. This must have been when I was in college, when Ethan and I were dating. I was completely bewildered. "Jack, what is going on?" I was back at the university for some paperwork and decided to walk through the campus. "I saw you and was about to come say hi, but then your boyfriend showed up." His voice was neutral, but for some reason, I detected a hint of sourness. "You're lying. I didn't even know you back then. We met on our blind date. Stop trying to trick me." Jack suddenly looked at me intently. "Mia, you're the one who broke your promise. You're the one who forgot me first." I was completely lost. But Jack seemed a bit angry, reverting to his usual cold demeanor. "If you can't remember, then forget it. Just get some rest." "Jack." I instinctively grabbed his sleeve, about to act cute. But then I remembered, we were divorced. I quickly let go. Jack glanced at his watch. "I have a very important meeting to get back to. You stay here at the hospital. I'll come pick you up this afternoon, and then you're coming with me to see a doctor." Seeing him get up to leave, I couldn't hold back. "Jack, is Claire really pregnant?" Jack glanced at me. "Yes." My heart dropped. I sat on the hospital bed, the baggy, blue-striped patient gown making me look especially small and thin. Jack's gaze softened. He walked over and stroked my face again. "Don't overthink it. Get some rest." "Her baby." I wanted to ask, "Is it yours?" But the words felt impossible to say. Getting her to the hospital that quickly was the right call. "The baby's fine. Don't worry about it. Even if there was something going on, it has nothing to do with you." Did he think I was worried about the well-being of Claire's baby? I was too angry to speak and pushed him away. "Just go to your meeting." "Go." He really did seem to be in a hurry. He didn't say anything else, just told me to rest and left quickly. My mind was a mess. I couldn't stand being in the hospital any longer, especially since he was coming back in the afternoon to take me to see another doctor. And I didn't want him to know I was pregnant. So I changed my clothes, checked myself out, and went home. Maybe it was the first trimester sleepiness, but I showered, lay down, and fell asleep almost instantly. When I woke up, I vaguely heard a faint noise outside. I quickly got out of bed and opened the bedroom door. "You're awake?" Jack was standing by the dining table, looking at me. He was wearing his usual black shirt and pants, his waist lean and trim. Barefoot again. He walked over, looked at my feet on the floor, and frowned slightly before turning to get my slippers. As he knelt to put them on for me, I whispered his name. "Jack." "The night Claire came back, were you with her?" He finished putting on my slippers, then pulled me to a chair at the table before speaking. "Mia, I was at the office all night, working." "You're not lying?" "I have never lied to you." He reached out and gently stroked my face. "Mia, you're the one who never wanted to believe me. My birthday last year, you said you had a business trip. The trip was real. Running into her was an accident. It was that day that she asked me to recommend a lawyer for her divorce, which is why we started talking occasionally. I didn't know who to believe. When he said it like that, I couldn't help but believe him. But Claire's social media posts, those ambiguous words, what did they mean? Something suddenly occurred to me. I stood up to grab my phone. I had saved all the screenshots Jessica sent me. Even though they made me sick, I had never once opened them. "Then look at these." I opened the screenshots and showed them to Jack. He looked at them, didn't say anything, but took out his own phone. I watched as he opened Claire's profile, her feed. Claire's feed was set to be visible for the last 6 months, but this latest post wasn't there. It was obvious that when she published it, she had deliberately blocked Jack from seeing it. I started to understand. Even if Jack had no feelings for Claire, she clearly had feelings for him. When we met that day, and I asked her why she'd spend the night with a married man, she had paused for a moment before going along with my assumption. Thinking back, Jack wasn't lying. He wasn't with Claire that night. Jack's face darkened. Men clearly hate it when women play these kinds of mind games. Maybe she just wanted to get back with you. I was still a little sour. After all, Jack and Claire were college classmates, and Jessica had said they used to be very close. Get back with me? Jack looked at me, annoyed. In college, she was dating my best friend. The one standing next to her in the photo. Mia, the only reason I helped her was because of that connection. He looked at me deeply. Later, he passed away in an accident. Before he died, he asked me to look after Claire. Her husband in the States was abusive and cheated on her while she was pregnant. That's why I lent her the Sterling Group's top lawyer for her international divorce case. I felt a pang of regret and guilt. I'm sorry, Jack, I really thought she was pregnant with your baby. What goes on in that head of yours? Jack seemed exasperated with me, reaching out to pinch my cheek. Mia, you're more than enough for me to handle. You think I have the energy for anyone else? He pinched a little hard, and I protested, it's me who can't handle you. The look in his eyes slowly changed. I suddenly felt a flicker of fear and instinctively covered my stomach. Since the divorce drama started, we hadn't been intimate in a long time. I knew he could be quite insatiable. I think dinner can wait. Jack scooped me up and headed for the bedroom. My heart started pounding erratically again. As he laid me on the bed and started unbuttoning his shirt with one hand, I couldn't resist. I wrapped my arms around his lean waist, nuzzling against his chest, and mumbled, Jack, there's a little baby in my belly. We probably can't do that right now, can we? The fingers unbuttoning his shirt suddenly froze. I pressed myself against his chest, nervously biting my lower lip. The fingers entwined behind his back twisted together like a pretzel. Mia. His hand came down, gently cupping the back of my head. Jack, I didn't copy Claire. You can't just copy a pregnancy. You're the one who bullied me, that's why I have a baby. I nuzzled against his chest again. His embrace, his scent, his warmth, I had missed it so much I thought I would go crazy. That last night we were together. We had run out of condoms at home. Jack was usually so careful, so rigid about these things he never forgot, not once. But for some reason that night, he was especially forceful, exceptionally dominant, and for the first time, he wasn't insistent on using protection. Even though he knew it was my safe period. But accidents happen. Thinking back now, that time frame was probably right when the news broke that Ethan and Jane had broken up and he was planning to come back to the States. The reason he was so insatiable that night was very likely because he was jealous. A sweet feeling bloomed in my heart, but I was afraid I was just being delusional. So, you weren't feeling well because you're pregnant, right? He stroked the back of my head, his long fingers sliding down my soft hair to my back, pulling me in tighter. I fainted from not feeling well. I only found out at the hospital. Why didn't you tell me? I was still mad at you then. I thought you and Claire had made a baby. Mia, Jack said, both helpless and angry. Do you have any clear understanding of the situation? What? I am your husband. Other women have nothing to do with me. Jack, then tell me, did you marry me because you like me? I was completely muddled. All Jack had to do was whisper one sweet thing, and I'd probably happily help him count the money after he'd sold me. Of course not. Jack's words yanked me out of my daydream. Because you're a fool. Jack sounded utterly exasperated. Mia, did you have a high fever when you were little that fried your brain? A man like him, extremely capable, with the entire Sterling family now under his control. Even if his marriage wasn't 100% his choice, he at least had the upper hand. My family, while not poor, was nothing compared to the Sterlings. Why would Jack marry me? My dad's business relied on him. I couldn't offer him any help. I suddenly clutched his sleeve. Jack, you don't, have a secret crush on me, do you? That's why he would keep a photo that wasn't even really a photo of us together. Jack suddenly ducked his head. The moment I finished speaking, he cupped my face with both hands and kissed me. I wanted to say more, but he deepened the kiss. I was soon dizzy from his kisses, melting into his arms, unable to think about anything else. Of course, we didn't end up doing anything in the end. I lay on the pillow, my face flushed. Jack had gone to the bathroom for a cold shower. Listening to the sound of the running water, I thought back to the steamy scene just moments before, buried my face in my pillow, and smiled secretly. The next day, Jack took me for a prenatal checkup. Just as we arrived at the obstetrics and gynecology department, we ran into Claire, who was also there for a checkup. Her eyes lit up at first, but then they fell on me, and her expression instantly dimmed, becoming pitiful and fragile. Jack. But she quickly put on a gentle smile and walked toward us. Even though I really disliked her, Jack's arm was wrapped securely around my waist and didn't move an inch even when Claire appeared, so I had nothing to be angry about. I'm not one to hold grudges. To put it nicely, I'm carefree and easygoing. To put it bluntly, I'm just a bit foolish, letting things slide even when I'm being bullied. Claire acted as if I didn't exist, speaking directly to Jack. Jack, our college reunion is in a few days. You'll be there, right? It's been so many years since I've seen our old classmates. I probably can't make it. Why not? Is it because of work? Mia's pregnant. I need to spend more time with her. Jack gave her a faint smile. Is there anything else? I need to take Mia for her checkup. Claire's face went white. She clearly hadn't expected this and stood there, stunned, for a long time, unable to say a word. Jack led me straight to the examination room. Claire called out again, stunned. Jack. But, didn't you two get a divorce? Then Mia, she stammered, deliberately leaving her sentence vague. It was her signature move. I didn't say anything. Claire was Jack's problem to deal with, so he had to be the one to clean it up. What are you trying to say? Or do you think I, Jack Sterling, am stupid enough to be played for a fool? Jack's words were actually quite harsh. That's not what I meant, Jack. I was just worried you were being deceived. Claire put on her on the verge of tears expression again. I shook my head and spoke slowly. My husband should indeed be worried about being deceived. Don't you think so, Ms. Lin? Mia, what do you mean by that? Jack and I have known each other for so many years. Why would I ever deceive him? I didn't say anything, just smiled sweetly at Jack. After Claire spoke, she seemed to realize her slip of the tongue and instantly looked annoyed. Speaking of which, you and Leo were only together for a short time. When he passed, he asked me to look after you, and I've done my best all these years. Ms. Lin, Mia just found out she's pregnant and needs to rest. She can't be upset or angry. Please refrain from saying such ambiguous things in front of her in the future. Oh, and by the way, post less of those misleading social media updates. After Jack finished, without waiting for Claire to respond, he led me into the examination room. By the time we came out, Claire was long gone. She probably won't be showing up in front of you again. Jack tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear. Mia, from now on, no matter what happens, you need to talk to me first. But before, you were always so busy. You always came home so late, and by the time I woke up in the morning, you were already gone to work. I saw you so rarely. That was probably why he wasn't fully aware of how his family treated me. And because my father-in-law was around, my mother-in-law, despite her dislike for me, was always polite on the surface. Jack looked at me for a moment, then suddenly pulled me into his arms. I've had someone get the villa at Maple Gardens ready. Starting today, we're moving out on our own. Jack, I hadn't expected him to say that. He was their only son. With Jessica just sent abroad, he was the only child his parents had left. It was my fault before. I brought you into my family but didn't protect you properly. I let you suffer. Jack raised his hand and gently stroked the corner of my slightly red eye. Mia, I'm so sorry. My tears instantly streamed down. Jack, I don't blame you. I wasn't perfect either. If I were more mature, more sensible, your mom would have liked me more. None of that matters. As long as I like you, that's all that matters. Jack gently wiped my tears, but they just kept coming. Jack, am I too childish, too immature? I can't be like those other wives, gentle, mature, and independent. You don't need to be. You just need to be Mia. Easy for you to say. You wouldn't even let me dye my hair or wear shorts and short skirts. Jack suddenly laughed. He leaned down and kissed my damp eyelid, his tall nose brushing against mine in an intimate caress. Silly girl, do you think any husband in the world would want his wife to dress like that for other men to see? But I was wrong before. You can wear whatever you like. From now on, as long as you like it, I won't interfere. Besides, there was another reason, one that Jack wasn't quite ready for Mia to know. In college, Mia always dressed like a bombshell, and Ethan was the trendy, westernized type. Standing together, they really looked like a perfect match. So, after they started dating, Jack used a few tricks to quickly get Mia to change her style on her own. Mia thought it was because Jack liked the gentle, ladylike look, but for Jack, it was just about erasing every trace of Ethan from Mia's life. He looked down at the girl in his arms. The girl who had once cried, hugging a rabbit in front of her mother's tombstone in the pouring rain. The girl who had softened his heart and whom he could never forget. She had finally become his wife and was about to become the mother of his child. He wanted her to stay innocent forever, to always be like a child. He would protect all the goodness in her soul within the world he had built. So, you were jealous? Jack, tell me, were you jealous? I tugged on his collar, whining playfully. Still won't admit you're captivated by my beauty? Afraid someone will see my tiny waist and long legs, right? Right? Are you sure, you still have a tiny waist right now? He touched my still flat stomach and teased me in my ear. That's because there's a baby in there. You can't dislike me just because I get fat from being pregnant. I was exceptionally defiant, even puffing out my belly on purpose. Jack, you have to like me even if I get fat. You have to. Aren't you afraid the baby will hear you and laugh? Jack took my hand helplessly. Weren't you hungry? Didn't you want to get hot pot? He's the size of a soybean. What the hell does he know? I took his hand, our fingers intertwining. He had always been a proper and stern man. I'd never heard him swear before. And now, faced with my slightly crude language, he frowned but didn't say anything. I couldn't help but think back. There were so many little moments in our relationship that were clues, but I just hadn't noticed them before. He had always been tolerant of me. My little tantrums, my slight vulgarity, my messiness, my absent-mindedness. Even though he was rarely home, thinking back, every time he came back, no matter how late, he would kiss me, even if I was fast asleep. And in the morning, when he left early for work, he would always kiss me before leaving. In the 2+ years we were married, he woke up at 6 every day, but I, his wife, had rarely gotten up with him to make him breakfast or tie his tie. I suddenly felt that I was a pretty inadequate wife myself. I had been trapped in my own negative emotions, magnifying my grievances and suspicions while ignoring his silent efforts and tolerance. My insecurities made me unhappy and added to his stress while he was busy with work. Honey. The moment we got in the car, I couldn't help but hug him gently. I rarely called him that, except in bed when he would deliberately force me to say it in the heat of the moment. I pressed my face against his broad back, the sweetness in my heart gradually swallowing the bitterness and sourness. This was my man, my husband, the father of the baby in my belly. How lucky was I to have married a man like this? Is something wrong? Jack panicked a little, turning to hold my shoulders and ask softly. I shook my head and held out my arms for a hug. Before, when I was unsure of his feelings, would always act spoiled with him. Now that I knew he cared about me, it seemed I wanted to be clingy and cute every second of the day. Jack pulled me into his arms. Why are you so clingy? I only want to be clingy with you. I never dared to before. You didn't dare? Jack kissed my earlobe. I wonder who it is that's been impossibly spoiled since the day we got married. I have not. Oh really? Which time wasn't it you whining about being tired and sore? I serve you with all my heart, and you still cry in my arms, accusing me of bullying you. You did bully me. Taking advantage of your height and strength. Don't take what you have for granted. Someone else can have this blessing. I don't want it. It's exhausting. Don't even think about it. This blessing is only for you. Jack kissed me. Let's eat first. After we eat, we'll go home, and I'll settle the score with you. He took me for hot pot. Although he disliked such smoky environments, he went along with it because I liked it. As we were getting ready to leave after eating our fill, I ran into Tony. She was there for hot pot with a few of her friends. The moment she saw Jack and me with our fingers intertwined, Tony's lips trembled and her eyes turned red. I had been Jack's wife for over 2 years. Why hadn't she gotten used to it yet? Tony glared at me, puffed up like a little blowfish. Why was that kind of cute? To be honest, although we couldn't stand each other, Tony wasn't the type to play dirty tricks behind my back. So really, we didn't have any deep-seated hatred for each other. I just liked to deliberately annoy her since we were kids. Today was no exception. As we walked past Tony, she glared at me. Mia, you two got back together? I nodded. Yep, we're back together. Although Tony was angry and jealous, she still managed to say, guess you're not a complete idiot after all. By the way, you told me on the phone before that Jack married someone randomly because he was heartbroken. Tony glanced nervously at Jack, wanting to explain. But I continued smugly, sorry, but it seems he was heartbroken because of me, too. What did you say? Tony clearly didn't believe me, her eyes practically bulging out of her head. Lower your voice. Don't scare the little baby in my belly. I quickly covered my stomach with both hands and snuggled into Jack's arms. Jack was happy to play along, wrapping me in his embrace. Mia. You're pregnant. Tony was clearly shocked. Didn't they say Jack doesn't like you and won't have kids with you? Who said that? I hadn't even reacted, but Jack seemed to get angry first. His face was cold, and Tony was so scared she started stammering, they all said that. Jessica said it too. I just heard it, I wasn't the first one to say it. Do you think I, Jack Sterling, would marry a woman I don't like? Tony shook her head frantically, so scared she was about to cry. I tugged on Jack's sleeve. All right, I'm getting sleepy. Let's go home. Jack didn't say anything more and left with his arm around me. In his embrace, I turned back and said to Tony, Tony, you're actually really pretty. I'm sure a great guy will love you with all his heart. Tony was so used to fighting with me that she was about to snap back, but seeing Jack, she managed to hold it in. People who are happy seem to become extra generous and easygoing. I was even willing to wish the best for my lifelong rival, Tony. When I was 3 months pregnant, the doctor said my pregnancy was going well, the fetus was developing nicely, and hinted that Jack and I could resume intimacy. But I was a little embarrassed because my belly had started to show a little, and my waist wasn't as slender as it used to be. That night, after Jack helped me with my bath and we went back to the room, I hid under the covers and refused to show my face. Until Jack came over after his shower. He lifted the covers, his body still cool and fresh from the bath. I was too shy to look at him, even though we had been intimate countless times before. In that moment, I felt like it was our first time all over again. A long, long time later, as the pitter-patter of rain began outside the window, everything finally ceased. I snuggled in his arms, too lazy to speak, his scent enveloping me, so reassuring. Jack. Let's call our baby Soybean, okay? Isn't that a bit plain? It's cute. A little soybean will grow into a delicious bean sprout, just like he's sprouting in my belly right now. We'll still need to give him a grander official name. I'll leave that to you. You're much more educated than me. I yawned sleepily in his arms, hugging his waist and murmuring, I'm so tired. When Soybean is born, I'm going to tell him how his daddy always bullies his mommy. I must have fallen asleep right after saying that, because I didn't hear what Jack whispered in my ear. Silly girl. It's because I love you, because I adore you, that I always want to bully you like this. The year I turned 16, my dad got very close to an auntie and even thought about marrying her. I wasn't against my dad remarrying, but I couldn't accept him marrying the woman my mom had hated most when she was alive. My mom had told me that woman used to have a crush on my dad, but my dad only loved my mom. When they were about to get married, that woman even tried to stir up trouble, to make my mom misunderstand my dad and call off the wedding. But my dad, being a typical clueless man, couldn't see any of the scheming. Later, my parents got married and had me, and that woman, after a few years, gave up and got married herself. But now she was divorced and back in the city. When she heard my dad hadn't remarried after my mom got sick and passed away, she immediately sought him out. I couldn't accept it, but my dad seemed possessed at the time. He even hit me when we argued about it. That was the first time I'd ever been hit. I ran out of the house crying, dashing through the rain to the cemetery to find my mom. I cried for a long time at my mom's grave, holding my favorite rabbit. I had found him. He was like me, a little wild rabbit without a mother. I had raised him from a baby and loved him dearly. We both don't have moms anymore. I used to be luckier than you because I still had a dad, but now I don't even have a dad. From now on, it's just you and me against the world. That was the day Jack and I first met. The entire cemetery was empty except for the two of us, standing in the rain to mourn our loved ones. Maybe I was crying so pitifully that Jack heard me and came over. He held an umbrella for me and used his handkerchief to wipe the rain and tears from my face. I held my rabbit and sobbed, Mister, do you think kids without moms are especially pathetic? Other kids can cry in their mom's arms when they're upset, but I can only cry to my mom's tombstone and her picture. Be strong. Your mom would be heartbroken if she knew, he said, looking at me with eyes full of pity. But I don't want to be strong. Why do I have to be strong? Just because I don't have a mom, does that mean I don't even have the right to cry when I'm hurt? What's your name? Mia. Okay, Mia. From now on, if you're ever upset again, come tell me, okay? Mister, really? Of course. Whenever you need me, I'll be there for you. At 22, Jack had just lost his beloved grandparents and was trapped in his own grief. In the rain, he gently hugged the wronged and pathetic girl, Mia. They were like two lost souls adrift on a boundless sea, and on that day, in that moment, they gave each other the only warmth they had. But Jack didn't know the reason I never called or looked for him. After leaving the cemetery, I didn't go home. I went to the apartment my mom had left me. By the time my dad found me, I had been running a high fever from the rain for a day and a night. I was almost delirious. When I woke up in the hospital, 3 days had passed. The housekeeper had washed my clothes, and the little note Jack had left was long gone. I felt like I had forgotten something important, but I dismissed it as a fever dream. After I recovered, I completely forgot about our encounter. What I didn't know was that the illness had lasting effects on my health. My dad was filled with regret. After understanding my reasons for protesting, he broke up with the woman. He spoiled me even more, not just out of guilt, but because my personality had changed after I got sick. Before, I was sensitive and matured early. But after I recovered, I became like a carefree child, happy every day. I wasn't even as mean to my rival, Tony, anymore. I was lucky to have a dad who truly loved his daughter, and even luckier to marry a man who was willing to protect my innocence for a lifetime. And I myself might have gone my whole life without knowing that I wasn't, in a true sense, a completely healthy woman. But no matter what, I was incredibly happy and blessed. Later, when our little Soybean was 3, I got pregnant again and had a beautiful daughter. I nicknamed her Sprout. Compared to our son, Jack adored our daughter even more. My dad said Sprout looked exactly like me when I was little, unbelievably beautiful and cute. By then, I was a mother of two, but in front of Jack, I became even more clingy and prone to tantrums. I even got a little jealous and cried because he spoiled Sprout so much. That night, I blocked the bedroom door and refused to let him in. Jack tried to coax me for a long time. Finally, he gave up and offered to tell me a secret in exchange for opening the door. I opened the door and demanded to know the secret. And then, he told me the story of how we first met. I started crying halfway through. I missed my mom. And I missed the rabbit who had been my companion. We were caught in the rain together. I survived, but he was gone forever. But most of all, I missed the Jack from back then. The 22-year-old Jack who held me in the pouring rain and let me cry my heart out. If I hadn't forgotten him, if we had started loving each other back then, how wonderful would that have been? 6 years. 6 years just passed by. Mia. Jack cupped my face, kissing away my tears one by one. Did you know, I've been waiting for you since you were 16? I waited for you to call me, to find me, until finally, I thought I had given up. Later, I saw you at the university. You had a boyfriend. I walked right past you, and you didn't even glance at me. Your eyes were only for Ethan. Do you know how jealous, how envious I was? And then, I happened to learn that the girl I was being set up with was named Mia. I thought to myself, I'll just see. Maybe it's you. He held me tightly, as if holding a lost and found treasure. It was so good. It really was you. He sighed softly, his fingers gently stroking my tear-stained eyes. The moment I saw you, I wanted to marry you, to keep you by my side forever. Jack. I stood on my toes, hooked my arms around his neck, and kissed him through my sobs. You have to love me the most. Forever and always, love me the most. You can't love Sprout more than you love me. Okay. Jack leaned down to return my kiss. Jack will only love Mia for the rest of his life. He will love Mia the most. You're terrible. How am I terrible? I was only 16 then. You're a pervert. I started whining and acting spoiled again. Admit it, you were lusting after my beauty. I was gorgeous back then. So many boys at school had a crush on me. You were very beautiful. It's just, in a cemetery, and you were wearing a white dress. At first, I was a little scared. I thought you were a ghost from a ghost story. Jack. I jumped up and started hitting him playfully. Jack looked at me, his eyes full of doting and indulgent laughter. But, even if you really were a ghost, and you were going to suck all the life out of me, I, Jack Sterling, would have accepted my fate. He bent down and picked me up. Aren't you ashamed? You're a mother, and you're still fighting with your own daughter for attention and crying about it. I can't help it. It's because I love you so much. Mia. I love you too. Even more so, and for much longer, than you love me.